Is it 4? Hello, everyone. I'm Chair Sue Oliva, and I would like to welcome you to the June 2025 Historic Resources Commission meeting. The HRC is a quasi-judicial body that is governed by North Carolina general statutes, the City of Asheville's Unified Development Ordinance, and Buncombe County Ordinance. We are authorized to hear requests for certificates of appropriateness for alterations, demolitions, new construction, and other work within historic districts, or for the alteration and demolition of historic landmarks and other duties, including preliminary review of subdivisions as specified in the ordinance for the HRC. I will now ask commission members to introduce themselves.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to show my
Sorry,
computer.
Shannon Watkins. I'm a real estate broker and a graduate of UNC Asheville.
Will Hornaday from Albemarle Park.
Sue Oliva, historian.
Celeste Gorman, interior design.
Rob Mays, I'm an attorney.
Bill Roberts, commercial real estate.
Leslie Humphrey, I'm in
Janice Ashley, legal advisor to the HRC, and I'd like to introduce another new assistant city attorney.
Matt Holloway, 3 days in.
Now consider the meeting minutes from the May 2025 meeting of the HRC. The minutes include findings of fact and conclusions of law. Are there any corrections?
Hearing no corrections, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from May 2025.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We will now begin the evidentiary hearings for the items listed on the agenda. As a quasi-judicial proceeding, the HRC is not setting policy, nor are we soliciting public opinion on the desirability of an application. The HRC hears and considers evidence presented and applies the standards set forth in the guidelines and standards of the specific historical district for that application. The HRC must make its decision upon competent, material, and substantial evidence to determine the facts of the hearing. The HRC will use judgment and discretion to apply the standards contained in the relevant guidelines to the facts. The commissioners, in voting for an item, will not have a fixed opinion not susceptible to change, have a conflict of interest, have engaged in ex parte communication regarding the application. It's open to the public, but participation is limited to interested parties who wish to provide comment or testimony regarding the proposal.
Excuse me.
I'd like all of you who are planning to speak to please come forward and raise your right hand so I can swear you in.
Madam Chair, you might have noticed, but I put the script for the swearing in the script document. Do you see that? But printed out. Okay. I just added it to the digital script document.
Oh, okay, well, that's probably why I should. Okay. Okay, everyone raise their right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the information you present during the hearing for a certificate of appropriateness or preliminary subdivision approval before the Historic Resources Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you. We'll now move on to our first public hearing item.
Oliva, members of the commission. First, I'm going to present the first two items together because they technically go together. We only looked at 46 Pearson Drive last time, but today we're looking at both separate applications, but connected to each other. So just as a recap, the properties in question are located at the corner of Pearson and Gay Street, 42 and 46. Top right-hand side is Street View image before the fencing was installed. On the left side of this slide is the site plan showing the location of the fencing. As far as the fencing along Gay Street is on the left-hand side of this drawing, so that's technically a front yard as well, because it's on a corner lot. And then the fence turns back to the rear property line, follows rear property line, then comes down between the two houses, and then there's a section that extends out towards the street in the front yards of the houses, and then there's a section that connects the side elevation of 46 Pearson. So what you're looking at in these two pictures is the fencing on the top is along Gay Street. We didn't look at these images last time, but that's for a 42 Pearson, and then this is looking at the back property line of 42 Pearson. And then these are the images we looked at last time. The top is the post and wire fencing that's coming down into the front yard, as well as the privacy fencing. Right-hand side is in the rear and side yard, and then on the left-hand side is the post and wire fencing that comes to meet the corner of the house at 46 Pearson. I think those are all my slides for this. I was going to move through pretty quickly. For our new commissioner, we looked at this application at the last hearing. Top and bottom rails are not allowed for post and wire fencing, so that was one issue with the existing fencing meeting the standards. And then in the image on the bottom left-hand side, you see that the fencing meets the corner of the front building corner of 46 Pearson. And, excuse me, that is also not allowed per the standards. Fencing that extends into a side yard has to terminate at least 1 foot beyond the front building. So those are the two issues. Last time, the applicant did supply, or the applicant for 46 Pearson did supply some additional images of fencing in the district. However, even though we said made clear at the last meeting that we would need addresses for the fences so that we could verify if they were approved under the current standards or not, or if they were installed without a CA, but we don't have addresses for those properties, unfortunately. Aren't able to verify that information. I did notice when I made my site visit before coming to this meeting today that some of the fences are definitely outside of the historic district boundary. Excuse me. Some of them are for sure outside of the historic district boundary, which I'm not sure the applicant would have necessarily known that because it skirts several back, like, forget the name of the street that's right behind Pearson Drive, but there's some houses back there that have fences that are not within the district boundary. So those we can eliminate as like examples, but the rest we don't know where they are. So that's really my summary. I still have the same concerns as far as those standards being pretty have to be applied, so that's all I have to share with you.
Alex, the heights that specify 4 feet and 6 feet, is that from grade or is that from, and is there a height issue on these? Or I know you say it's to the top of the posts too, right?
Yeah, I couldn't tell from, I wasn't entirely sure whether the fencing, I don't think that there's necessarily, I didn't measure it, but they're noted on the images that the post and wire fencing that's in the front yard meets the height limitation. But I'm not, like the fencing in the side that meets the corner of the house, it's taller, but it's also what we would consider a side yard fence if it's set back from the front building corner. So technically it could be up to 6 feet tall. The way that the drawing or the dimensions are noted on the privacy fencing image, I'm assuming that means that up arrow means that it's from grade to the top of the fence that it's 6 feet and not just to where the lattice portion starts, but I'll let the
something, is this isn't goat wire. I'm just trying to make sure, this is just panel.
Yeah, we would consider this, like some people call it hog wire, goat wire, whatever animal you want to pick.
This fence.
Yes.
Okay.
And what I was trying to explain last time that maybe you're thinking of is that when the standards were amended in 2016, at that point in time, any fence in a front yard, at that point, we started to see an influx of, number one, aluminum metal fencing instead of iron fencing, which was pretty goat wire. And so we decided at that point in time to say, hey, we think that all fences in front yards should be they're always so controversial, and there was no clear guidance to staff on where we were supposed to be approving what type of fence and whatever. So, so at that point in time, we also suggested that maybe that if this type of fencing, wire fencing was allowed, then perhaps it shouldn't have top and bottom rails, because the historic loop wire that this was intended to be a temporary like style of, it made it way more visible within the landscape than the historic kind of finer gauge wire fencing. Finer gauge fencing that was typical of the district in its historic days, you know, the loop wire or that really fine gauge mesh wire. That makes sense. That was the rationale behind that change then, and we did community engagement, as I noted last time. Of course, when we do community engagement, we never have everyone in the neighborhood. I think we probably, I mean, that was a year after I started with the city. I'm gonna say we probably had 40 people on this back then. So, but it is the current standard. Doesn't mean that the standard will be amended in the future, but this is the standard that is applicable today.
But would it, if those panels came down and they just stretched wire from those existing posts, it would be pure, right?
We didn't really talk about the finials. That's not something that the standards say. You can't have finials. That's, I think this is maybe the first one I've seen that. But also, we don't have, like, it's not like we review a ton of front yard fences. I don't review backyard fences anymore. I should get the one that's. Yeah, sorry, I should have started by telling you all that we're in the middle of some tech upgrades. New mics, thankfully, but more to come at a future meeting. So.
So I have with me my neighbor, John, who we're just going to co-present in the sake of time. I know we took quite a bit of time last time discussing this issue, so hopefully we can get some resolution pretty quickly this time around. But John here at 42 Pearson is with me to speak to the issues. I want to say I did amend the COA prior to this session. I guess it didn't end up going through. It didn't, but I have your images to the folder anyway. So the Right, but so I was requesting, since the last meeting, there's been some new information that's come to light, specifically that even prior to Helene, there was some discussion and some work with our community and the HRC on 4 specific issues, and I'm told fences were one of them. So in my amendment to the COA, I was actually requesting that, number 1, we look at amending the guidelines specifically for the fences and redo community outreach to determine if the community feels like this is an acceptable fence for our neighborhood. And then to follow up with that, to look at potentially tabling this decision on the permit until amendments, or it was deemed if the community
That is something that we are going to be discussing with the neighborhood.
What would that do for me?
Fact, so I think we're still going to have to move forward because it's an after the fact, and even if the rules change, that's going to be down the road because we don't have anything scheduled right now with the community to work on that, and we need the whole community, so it's going to be a bit.
On the Gay Street side, does that have to be a picket fence or a privacy fence or a chain link fence? Because chain link fences are allowed, which is really odd because they were not historical whatsoever. So do I put a chain link fence up? Do I take the caps that are there off the fence and put the metal bars from chain link fences there? Would that make it more attractive for the community? I don't think so. On the Gay Street side, if I make it into a privacy fence, the whole point of the fence is to make it open and keep Montford open. The only portions that's privacy is where people sleep, which I was trying to give both Jenny and my back neighbors some privacy because the bedrooms are off of there. The other fences are beautiful fences that everybody in our neighborhood has said look amazing. And I go around the neighborhood and there are fences of every type possible that have been put in. And it's very frustrating when you come to the committee and you try to do something and the committee says you can't do that even though neighbors have done it and stuff. So it's very, very frustrating. I had a beautiful rock wall put in. I was told under no circumstances whatsoever are there any columns in Montford. Alex was kind enough to come over, and I showed her probably 20 columns throughout Montford, and that was allowed to go forward. I could put tiny columns on my rock wall, even though I was told I was not allowed to. That got changed because there are columns all over Montford. I wanted to do rock steps. I was told I can't do rock steps.
Let's stay on the fences right now, and then we'll come back to that. But chain link fence isn't allowed.
It goes to the frustration of
I
trying
hear
to
you.
do something and being told you're not allowed to, and then finding out you are and having to prove to the committee that you're allowed to.
Right, and I think if you would have, I think the after the fact part makes it all messy, and I get that. But I'm not sure what you're, without a, when you say the Gay Street side, is there, can you show us what you're?
So it's the same fence that's between Jenny's and my house.
That's the goat fence material.
It's the one that separates you from the rec center.
Correct.
It's you, fence, street, rec center.
Right, and I thought that because that was a side street, that would be okay because I see privacy fences all over. I don't want a privacy fence. I want it to be open.
But
It's actually a front yard because it's on the side, so it's not, like, the wire fencing isn't a problem on that side. It's just that the top and bottom rails are on the fence.
Right, and if we take the top and bottom rails off, the bears will come through and destroy the fence every 6 months.
I understand your frustration, and it's hard when you see things that we don't know what those other fences are, or if they were approved or not. We have to take you guys one step at a time, and we have to follow the guidelines. We're not trying to be bad guys, but our responsibility is to look at the guidelines and make sure they're maintained. I understand your
And I think what we're all saying here is the guidelines aren't correct. How do we get them modified? And I think what you're saying is you're in the process of modifying them, but we're going to have to change the fence. And then if they get modified, can we change it back?
I think that that's a decision that would be made at that time. It's really, there is no changes to the guidelines at this point, and there's no say as to what way it's going to go. We still have to talk with the neighborhood. We still have to talk with the group and decide what those changes are. And maybe those changes would be in your favor, but if they weren't, then it would be bad on our parts to allow you to do that and then tell you in 6 months that you have to take it out anyways,
Well,
either way.
And I think that's why I was requesting that if we could just table it, not say yes or no on the decision for our fence until a decision was made on the amendments. And then depending on how that would go, due process would have occurred. We would feel good about whatever decision was made at that time. That's why I was requesting if we could consider tabling this.
Because this is an after-the-fact tabling.
So any other fences in our neighborhood that were done after the fact,
Well, I think, yeah, if we can prove that they were done without having
Without a COA.
If they were in the historic district and if they
Yeah,
were done without a
part of the
COA. And then also, as Alex was mentioning earlier, the guidelines were changed, within memory. It used to be that you could allow, you could have these, at least a top rail for these fences, and then the guidelines were changed to prohibit that. I wish that were true, but that is the case. Alex, if
Wait, just to clarify real quick, what I was saying is that it used to be just that so as a meeting place to allow this more contemporary style of fencing that clearly looks different than the finer gauge loop wire fence or just wire fencing, then we agreed with the neighborhood that it was okay so long as it didn't have the top and bottom rail, just like the old wire fencing didn't have the top and bottom rail. So that was why that was arrived upon as an acceptable material, period. It wasn't just that you could just put up this type of fencing before the standards were amended, if that makes sense.
Are you talking specifically about this goat wire? Or
Yeah, the type of wire, yeah.
hog wire.
But then the stuff that comes in continuous.
Not goat, hog.
The wire that comes in continuous rolls, that's like.
Yeah, that was commonly.
wire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the thinner wire was historic to Montford. It was used because it was mostly an agricultural area, so there was that fencing was historically characteristic of the neighborhood, which is why it was allowed in the standards in the first place. So when this newer contemporary material came about, we're always trying to accommodate newer contemporary things. This was kind of the compromise. We didn't talk about back then the bear issue, so that didn't come up. So, there could be practical reasons why the neighborhood would want to change it back, but it's just that, yeah.
But today, just to clarify what they can do, like the fence that is continuous wire, it's not exactly chicken wire, I don't know what you would call it, but the kind that you see around those little rectangle spaces. That just goes from post to post, that's okay, as long as it doesn't have lateral or horizontal or diagonal bracing outside of the gates. Right.
Or we can even do ugly chain link fence.
Well, chain link, I think that's wrong. I think the chain link, it says specifically.
It's not allowed in a front yard, though. Where you've got the wire fencing, you wouldn't be able to put chain link there.
Thought it actually
Chain
said-
link is strongly discouraged, but allowed provided it's dark in color, set back 5 feet from the property line and screened with vegetation. Comes with stipulations.
I mean, I live in the neighborhood just down from you. I totally understand all of these frustrations. I wish the guidelines didn't say what they do, but they do say that. And Alex, if after the fact like this is denied and someone, so, I take it, how much time are they given? Or is there a standard to come into compliance or?
It's really just been kind of dependent on the particular issue and what the applicant expressed their needs were. It's like, I think we're all reasonable, can understand that it might take somebody time to get a contractor or line the work up or figure out what their plan is as an alternative or whatever they need to do. So it's varied is my point. So that, I think we could leave that to, I guess legal could advise, but I think it's been sort of discretionary. We've never gone beyond like the year that the CA is valid.
Just want to be cautious about it because it after the fact is showing to the neighborhood, it's a violation. So right now, to cure the violation, they've come in to apply for a certificate of appropriateness. If you just let it stand it's not meant to go on forever. It's supposed to be reasonable. So what can you reasonably take down a fence in a certain time? Not because you're waiting for some standard to change. And I think traditionally, I believe, unless there's a hardship, the commission has said what you think is reasonable. We want to see this done in X period of time because we don't want to grant a CA and have it running up on the year and nothing has been done. And then the violation has been sitting there for the rest of the neighborhood to see. I understand that you've had comments about, well, maybe we think other people are already in violation, but again, without those addresses, we cannot then enforce it against those neighbors, and you've already said how you feel like that. But if it were, in fact, something that was done without that.
We brought up one house that has a privacy fence on a street. Everybody in my neighborhood had said there was never a fence there. Alex told me it was a pre-existing fence, so it was possible. So Alex is telling us there's a pre-existing fence there, and everybody in its neighborhood said there was never a fence there. So how do you get around that?
Come on, not at somebody else's house?
Yeah.
Property you're talking about,
One
John?
across from Montford Convenience Store.
That one did have an existing fence.
Everybody that I spoke to, and I walked my dog by there, Alex, for 3 years, there was no fence there. Okay? You're right, because you got the gavel.
I have a gavel.
Actually,
on
I
that.
have
She's
the
the
gavel.
planning staff, and this is the HRC. And if you've lived in the neighborhood a long time, you probably knew that there were these standards in your neighborhood.
And I saw fences like this all over the place, ma'am.
But why didn't you apply for a certificate of appropriateness before you put in the fence? That's the real heart of, as the commissioner has said, that's what makes the after the fact so contentious, because somebody has known they're in a historic district, known there are standards, and gone ahead and done something anyway, hoping that the commission might not have to follow the rules or make a special exception for somebody. So I'm just talking about the time frame now. This is, again, why it's encouraged to maybe set what you, commission, think is a reasonable time frame to get this done.
But you mean that would just be if we approved something with conditions? Like, are we being asked to approve some curative
I am not sure if you have found grounds to approve what's there or not, but if you haven't, then it would be denied, and you would be saying, so they would have to take action to remove it within a certain period of time. And if and again, it can either be staff saying, well, I think a month is reasonable, or 2 months, or the commission could sort of give an opinion. We have had people in the past that have really had some hardship that they were able to say, and the commission had said, well, we'll give you 4 months, 6 months to do. The idea is not to just let it go for a long period of time.
The upside would be, and I know it's, half glass half full, but the posts, it looks to me like stay. It's just the wire has to come down and a different kind of wire go up
I don't
without
think the wire, I think it's only the post,
top and
only the
bottom
top and
rails.
bottom rails. That's why I was asking, can I just replace them with the chain link, top and bottom rails? So there's rails, but they're not wood rails. They'd be chain link.
Front yard.
Chain link is discouraged. This chain link is strongly discouraged. It's not allowed.
Oh, I thought discouragement.
Provided it is dark in color, set back 5 feet from the property line, and screened with vegetation.
What I would try to do is try to get a contractor out there and see how he can take the top and bottom posts off, rails off, and keep the fence.
That hog wire comes in shorter lengths
I'm going to have to speak to him and have him
I guess you could put posts in every,
find a way to drill the fence into the 2 posts and hold it there without having a top and bottom rail. I mean, sure, when the bears come through, it'll destroy it, and we'll have to put it up again. But maybe you guys will change the standards, and we'll be able to get those standards when you do.
if the hog wire is 8 feet long by 4 feet tall, then put a post in every 8 feet.
That's
There
what it
now.
is.
Yeah. I believe, and please confirm this, the only issue is the top wooden rail and the bottom wooden rail.
That's right, and then she said there was one section that was right up to the front of the house and needed to come back 1 foot.
I'll move that.
And also the height was a question. Is the lattice included in that measurement that,
The lattice is decoration.
so it's not included in the measurement?
Chop that off.
I'm just reading the standards
yeah.
that say 6 feet is the, maybe up to 6 feet in height, and 100% solid.
Measure, I don't remember
We'll remeasure.
if the 6 foot.
Includes the posts, the top of the posts and the caps, for 4 feet on the front too, is how I understood.
Okay.
I could give you an answer, and it would be based on nothing but a guess. So I mean, I'll call him today and see when he can get out there.
So just to clarify what's happening, you're amending your application to change your fence to 4 feet in height on the side and removing the top and bottom rails on the,
I assume what we're going to do is contact my contractor.
we just need to have it. We don't
have-
have anything written, we're just trying to understand so that it's public information. Not a big deal.
Your
Well,
current
first needs-
application is to do exactly what you've done, so this is why you have to amend it to say, do what will meet the standards. So that's why he's
I
asking.
can't say, yes, we're going to amend it to meet those height standards, because I can't say for certain if it is or is not outside of the height requirements. I don't recall. It's been so long ago.
So we
since
can
We
I've-
continue this one?
That can be staff.
That can be, yeah, staff can check
Staff
that.
can
So,
help you through
But you
that.
could just say you're amending it to remove the trim around the
That
metal.
it'll be 6 feet, that the fence
And,
will not.
Making sure the other fence is that height limit. Verified, the condition could be verified by staff.
From grade or the average grade or not just the fence material, I believe.
We've always measured it from grade.
And then you're going to move the, I can't think on, just yours set back a foot? Okay.
I will say, I know there are some conversations with others with similar issues. Also watching that to.
Yeah. Good to have the community come out and be involved.
Guys do our best to include you in the community.
Yeah.
How is that communicated when?
Yeah, so Our plan was, before we got derailed from looking at those amendments because of the storm, was that we were going to collaborate with our communications department to do several, like, engagement and then potentially doing our own survey of the neighborhood and putting something on the list, trying to go the avenues that we know to go to try to get as many people to chime in and give us their thoughts as possible. That's usually our MO for any kind of community engagement that we would do. And so I think we set a rough timeline to pivot back to working on that to later this summer. Hopefully the subcommittee that was looking at it is able to reconvene. Hopefully, it won't take us too much longer to kind of get our bearings to be ready to do engagement. I will say that engagement is really hard right now, given all of our recovery projects. Our communications staff is very much overworked, but I'm hoping by then we're kind of ready to try to roll something out at that point. So probably fall, winter, we should be able to kind of plug in with the neighborhood on those proposed amendments.
Gotta
Make a
open up for public
motion
comment.
in a minute.
Timing.
Timing. So we have to put some kind of timing on it. I understand you're going to contact and that can probably be done through staff if they need to change that a little bit once they talk to the contractor.
A year? A year?
To get it fixed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I should be able to get it fixed by the end.
Whoops, I'm getting stares from legal.
Well, it's just that when something's in violation, you want it, as I thought I
Okay,
explained, you want it
yes.
to try to be corrected within a reason, but it shouldn't take a whole year.
So how's 6 months?
Well, we'll say 6 months and you can communicate, okay?
So what we have to do is go back and amend it.
Correct. They're amending it now, so
We're amending
We're amending
your application
your
based on what
application right
y'all
now.
said,
because we have to vote on the amended.
and then we're good.
Right.
Oh, so we don't have to amend the application, you guys.
It's all done.
Yeah.
The idea is we'll like
happening now.
amend it on the fly, take a vote on it, approve it, but it will have a condition that you make changes within that period.
And, yeah, and if you don't have any more, I have to open it up for public comment before we vote. So if you're done, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to open the floor for public comment. Come on up. Ben, did I swear you in?
I've not been sworn in, but I'm Benjamin Mitchell. I'll be glad to be done.
Wait, we have a few people is there anybody else who came in who's going to speak? Who might want to get sworn in now?
Other issue.
Okay, well, if you're going to speak, you can't, we have to swear you in if you're going to speak. Okay, Ben.
Good
you
evening,
ready?
all. I'm Benjamin Mitchell. We've met many times.
Wait, I got to swear you in.
Oh,
Sorry.
I thought you'd done it. I got confused there. Okay.
No, I did do it, but you weren't here. So now I'm going to do it with you. Okay, you have to raise your right hand. Okay, you know. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the information you present during the hearing for a certificate of appropriateness or preliminary subdivision approval before the Historic Resources Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Benjamin Mitchell, and I don't know this applicant. I often don't know the folks, but when I was on the commission many years ago, we started to have a rash of after-the-fact sort of certificate of appropriateness submittals, and I encourage you all to really send a strong message to the public that when we're in a historic district that has been designated after due process has been followed, to truly enforce those rules and try to find reasonable ways to accommodate people where you can. But I think what you were being asked to do earlier was ultra vires, and you can't take those sorts of actions as a public body. So maybe these guys get the rules changed, and if they do, great. If not, enforce what's there.
Anyone else for public comment? I'll close the floor for public comment. Any further discussion, Commission?
Okay, Chair, based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, application and project description, 3 pages, Exhibit B, photographs, 7 pages, Exhibit C, Google Street View images, and the Commissioner's actual inspection and review of subject property by all members except, I move that the Commission approve the certificate of appropriateness based on the following. The application is for after-the-fact approval to construct a new wood post and wire fence in side yard not to exceed 4 feet in height from grade. Construct wood privacy fence in rear yard not to exceed 6 feet in height from grade. Section of wire fencing in side yard. This is for 46 Pearson. Will be relocated and set back at least 1 foot beyond the front of the building corner. Misspelled. All work will be completed in accordance with approved and attached drawings and plans. All permits, variances, and approvals as required by law must be obtained before work may commence. 2, that the standards for fences and walls found on page 3637 of the Montfort Historic Design Review Standards, adopted April 14th, 2010, and amended December 11th, 2019, were used to evaluate this request. The application does meet design standards for the following reason. Top and bottom rails will be removed from the post and wire fencing. Fencing in the front yard will be modified not to exceed 4 feet in height and be no more than 65% solid. Fencing in the side yard will be set back at least 1 foot beyond the front building facade. Privacy fencing does not exceed 6 feet in height. And fencing is sited in locations that are compatible with the traditional historic relationship of fences to the historic properties in the district. 4, that the actions and improvements proposed in this application before us for a certificate of appropriateness are congruous with the special historic character of the Montfort Historic District.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Did he read
In the
that?
It's in the conditions.
They'll read the
Oh, down here,
conditions
okay,
after.
okay, sorry.
Seconded?
Corman.
Celesta.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Based upon the foregoing findings and the for reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be issued with the following conditions. 1, top and bottom rails will be removed from post and wire fencing, and post and wire fencing will be set back from the front of the building corner by at least 1 foot no later than December 11th, 2025. 2, fence height will be verified in the field by staff.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Now I'd like to do a motion for 42. Chair, based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, site plan, Exhibit B, project description, Exhibit C, application, 2 pages, and the commission's actual inspection and review of the subject property by all members except, I move that this commission approve the certificate of appropriateness based on the following. 1, that the application is for an after-effect approval to construct a new wood and post and wire fence in the side and rear yard not to exceed 4 feet in height from grade. Construct wood privacy fencing in rear yard not to exceed 6 feet in height from grade. All work will be completed in accordance with attached and approved drawings and plans. All permits, variances, and approvals as required by law must be obtained before work may commence. 2, that the standards for fences and walls found on page 3637 of the Montfort Historic Design Review Standards adopted April 14, 2010, and amended December 11, 2019, were used to evaluate this request. 3, this application does meet the design standards for the following reasons. A, top and bottom rails will be removed from post and wire fencing. B, fencing in the front yard will be modified not to exceed 4 feet in height and be no more than 65% solid. C, fencing in the side yard will be set back at least 1 foot beyond the front building facade. D, privacy fencing does not exceed 6 feet in height. Fencing is sited in locations that are compatible with traditional historic relationship to fences and historic properties in the district. 4, that the actions and improvements proposed in this application before us for a certificate of appropriateness are congruous with the special historic character of the Montfort Historic District.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Based upon the foregoing findings and the reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be issued with the following conditions. 1, top and bottom rails will be removed from the post and wire fencing, and post and wire fence will be set back from the front building corner by at least 1 foot no later than December 11th, 2025. 2, fence height will be verified in the field by staff.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All.
Our next item, new microphone height, not. Wow. Next application is for 112 Pearson Drive. We're taking a tour of Pearson today. Some of you might remember this property came through for major work review, maybe been a couple of years ago, to do some alterations on the structure. At that point in time, that property owner did propose to paint the brick. This is a little one-story ranch house on the corner of Pearson and Birch Street. And the standards in a couple of places, if you're looking at the standards for painting, painting of unpainted masonry is not allowed. And then we're also looking at the standards for non-contributing structures, which are on page 68 and 69. The proposal today is to tint the brick versus paint it. So a different method, but still a change in color. And I think there was some emphasis last time around on that painting is actually physically not good for brick. That is certainly one component, but I would say also argue that changing the color of brick is also something that changes the character of a structure. The commission reviewed, I'm sure if you live in Montfort, you're definitely familiar with the, I forget what it's called now, the church, the mid-century church that's being rehabbed on the corner of Cumberland and West Chestnut Street. They also proposed to paint the brick on that building, and the commission didn't allow it because the brick is part of what's character defining about the structure. That's true for a lot of mid-century structures. So I'm not supportive of changing the color of the brick personally. So that is really all I have to offer as far as what the standards say are pretty specific about not painting unpainted masonry. I'm happy to answer questions.
So obviously they're applying because they're within the historic district. But does it not matter what year the house is? I mean, the historic district I know has a lot of zigs and zags to omit certain properties.
This house is within the district boundary, so the standards do apply.
Although there's these specific non-contributing structures standards. When I read it, it says, non-contributing buildings should follow the guidelines under neighborhood setting to preserve the character of the neighborhood. Which suggests to me that there's a specific additional section of the guidelines that should apply to non-contributing structures.
There is for sure, but I think, and I can't remember which section paint colors in. But in my opinion, it's applicable in both are applicable because it is unpainted masonry. And it also, the standard number 1 on page 69 for non-contributing structures, so that every effort should be made to maintain the architectural integrity of non-contributing structures. And I would argue that the red brick color that this house was originally constructed of is like one of the only character defining features of this house. No, it's okay. This is a topic that doesn't come up very often, so you all, of course, like anything else, you're entitled to have a different interpretation of the standards, but this is as a preservation professional, the way that I looked at this. So it doesn't mean that I don't love painted brick, but I do think it changes the character regardless of the vintage of the building.
Matter to us what color it goes.
No, the only time we really ever look at color is for new construction projects. We'll look at color, and then if someone's building an addition, we'll look at color to, usually people are matching if it's an addition, but we do require a color palette for new construction. And really, when we're looking at it in that context, we're looking at it like if you're building like a craftsman style house, there is kind of a palette that's not really set for, it just talks about the hierarchy of colors, like what would be a trim color or, typical tone or, like white versus, like a lot of craftsman style houses use earth tones. And so I think the standards talk about that when they talk through the different features of those architectural styles. But otherwise, if you called me up tomorrow and said you wanted to paint your house and it was already painted, I would say, great, whatever color you want.
I always tell people we don't have a say in what color you paint your house.
No, but if someone does call us and ask about painting unpainted masonry, then that is definitely something that is not, the standards say that unpainted masonry shouldn't be painted. And like I said, I don't think that matters whether or not this house is historic. It's just the district was put in place so many years ago that this house wasn't historic when the district was put into place. So theoretically, if we were to update the National Register nomination for the district, this house would be a contributing structure because it's old enough to be historic. But that's kind of neither here nor there since we have not done that, but just
FYI.
Yeah.
Questions for Alex?
What is the proposed?
Sorry, I realized today when I was putting together my documents that her project description was we have a JOT form. If you might be familiar, if you've submitted for a CA application, we have a JOT form that you've got to fill out on our development portal, and it's got a place for the description of work. And so that's where she put her project description, and that's not in your folder. But I'll let Darcy, the property owners, tell you, but it's basically a cream color is what she wanted to tint the brick. So we don't have the specific color. I think this company that makes this product, the tinting product makes, I think it says like over 150 colors or something, product specs. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Darcy, can you speak into the microphone, please? No, it's okay. No, I understand. We all understand.
Page,
And sorry, that microphone is weird. I just realized you do kind of have to get right up close to it.
Even more fun, Darcy, right?
Page 68 mentions that the non-contributing structures are not considered historic. Therefore, as he mentioned, I wouldn't think we would be expected to follow historic guidelines since we're not considered historic. And the house, our house is actually the picture in the guidelines. It's labeled a contemporary single-story ranch. Painting the brick, it's still a single-story brick ranch, and by definition, contemporary isn't historic. Therefore, I didn't feel like I had to follow historic guidelines. It seems like that would get so messy if you're non-contributing, but you have to keep referring to historic guidelines for something that's not historic. As for painted brick, it's very common in Montfort if you just peek. I mean, once you start looking, you see it everywhere. Fireplaces, chimneys, porches, foundations, and unpainted masonry. There's painted pebble dash. It's always painted. Foundations, whether it's concrete block or whatever, those are painted. And painting the structure, it doesn't change the character of the house. It's still a single-story ranch. You can't take that away. The roof line defines its decade it was built. I just wanted it to look more cohesive because there's an addition on there that the previous owners did. And it would blend in with the neighborhood better, which is what it says to follow under the neighborhood. Better for the brick. It doesn't build a layer where water and moisture and mold and mildew can get in. It just becomes part of the brick. Permatent is the company. Their lifespan is between 20 and 30 years for one coat of this tin.
What year was your house built?
61.
So it's a historic ranch. It was a
Not in the guidelines.
I understand that, but by a historic preservation standard, 1961 is historic. And contemporary, I think, goes to the period of which it was built. It was considered a contemporary ranch in 1961. Right. I'm just explaining, you actually are living in a historic building.
Right, but the guidelines do distinguish between contributing and non-contributing structures and have a separate set of rules. I mean, when it says on page 69 that non-contributing buildings should follow the guidelines under neighborhood setting, which goes up through like page 50, I would take that to mean, they don't have to follow the others. But there is this one that Alex points to, number one, every effort should be made to maintain the architectural integrity of non-contributing structures, which I think then raises the question, is the color of this house part of its architectural integrity?
I don't think it's necessarily the color per se as much as it is just the fact that it's a brick masonry home that doesn't have color on it, which adding the color technically is taking, in my opinion, taking away from the architectural integrity. And another thing to point out in the same ones, it says alterations and additions to non-contributing buildings shall be compatible with the size, scale, color, material, and character of the neighborhood. Since technically colored brick is not really compatible with the neighborhood, I feel like that's still part of non-contributing structures.
So it may not be in the historic district.
porch that's painted, go around the corner. It's all over.
Right, that might have been, the house may have been painted. I don't know which houses you're speaking
I
of. It
understand
could.
that, there's just so many.
I
Like,
understand.
When I first tackled this project,
No,
I walked the neighborhood.
I understand that that would be an easy,
So painted brick would seem natural, whether it was approved or not.
And again, that just goes back to historically, if there was painted brick, historically, when that home was built, if they painted the brick when they first built the home, then technically those people are allowed to change that paint as many times as they want. It's just part of the historic nature of that home, which I understand is unfortunate for yours. I don't think that yours is going to be an eyesore. I don't think that at all. I actually think it would be beautiful. It's just hard trying to interpret the guidelines of what should be happening for your home.
Design standards have not been in place forever. I mean, they have been in place for almost 50 years. But just to note that, there are definitely masonry surfaces that were painted before then, or, maybe without even going through our review process for all we know, because there's definitely other painted masonry that I've seen in the district too. I know that doesn't necessarily help. I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, no, and I get whether it was approved or not, just that it would blend if it was painted, because it is very
And this was on your original application a few years ago to tint the brick?
common to paint it.
Okay, I see.
The other thing, the guidelines don't talk about staining. They talk about painting or sealing the brick is not allowed, but this is a different animal. If you want to like switch.
Unpainted surfaces, it's kind of
It's
hits
changing-
around there.
it's
It's tricky to
changing
get
what it
every
looked
word
like.
in there.
What happens in 20 to 30 years? Like, what does this look like aged?
Well, if you read their thing, they say 20 or 30 years, but it can last much longer. My understanding is they just recode it. It doesn't flake or anything. I don't know if it might fade over time.
Thank you.
floor for public comment. Close the floor for public comment.
General comment, as someone who lives down the street from this house also. Non-contributing structures, I think, in the neighborhood, not contributing just means, they're not from the period, of, what happened in Montford was, it went from being or at least parts of it, upscale to a more working class neighborhood. 2000 maybe, and there were HUD homes built, all kinds of, cheaper, more like efficient, economical houses, and this is probably one of those. And, I think the one thing about making an effort to preserve them is you may be, it's hurting the aesthetic appeal of the neighborhood overall in an effort to just, if you're focused on preserving this thing. To me, this is not the kind of house that the guidelines were made to preserve. part of the architectural integrity of the structure. If there was a change to, the design, if she wanted to take down the brick and clad it in stone, maybe. But, this was a house that was built for economic reasons.
As a big fan of mid-century modern and been to Palm Springs and spent a lot of time there, this is a historic home. It reflects mid-century modern.
But it's not the historic that our guidelines.
I don't agree. The house has integrity for when it was built, and it represents that period. And even though at this point in time, it's not a Montford historic home of a certain era, it is of an era that is important. And it was brick. And I would like it to stay brick.
The house at the corner of Chestnut and Montford, across from Tall John's, that's a brick house. That person wouldn't be allowed to paint it. It's kind of a no-brainer that we wouldn't let that one be painted. It's a brick house. It was 2 big oak trees across from Tall John's on Montford.
It's old.
Right, it's a historic house. No, it's not painted. I'm just saying, that's a brick
It's not
house. It's a brick house. And if someone with that house came and wanted to paint it, we would probably all have an easy time deciding not to paint it.
And like that house, this is in the district. There are standards for non-contributing structures based on when the survey was done in 78 or whenever, which is now 40 years. I don't know how long ago it was. And so this has come into its own, just like the houses that were in 78, that were 40 years from the 20s, those were about the same, 30s were about the same time. So this is a non-contributing structure that does follow the standards of the greater historic district, and specifically painting of brick, applying of a tint of paint is not discouraged, but it says not allowed. It's pretty clear that that's the wording and the intent of unpainted brick. So that's why I'm going to lean towards the denying the voting to deny based on standard number 3 in the standards on page 71.
Now, the owner doesn't have to apply for permission to paint the painted part.
That's not before us today,
I
but
know, I'm just saying that wouldn't
Correct.
have to be applied for. It's not brick. It's already painted.
I guess the
Clarifying.
difference between you and me, Will, is that to me, this standard on page 71 just doesn't apply because it's not a contributing structure.
and so additions wouldn't apply to it either? Because that's also not in neighborhood setting.
Well, there's a separate,
Front door, the windows?
there's a separate standard that says, I shouldn't get into hypotheticals. I don't think that this,
Painting a brick is fine.
that's a broader statement. I'm just saying, this standard, 71, does
Yeah.
not apply
Fine, everybody.
for a non-contributing structure.
Only for non-contributing structures.
Right.
So
Well, if there's no more comment, pardon me, go ahead, I can't.
Well, you can say it out loud.
If it's going to be denied, she might want the opportunity to pull the application prior to that.
I don't think there's any benefit.
Because then she can't reapply for anything to this nature for at least a year.
Correct. Right, I mean, theoretically,
would have to change.
Yeah.
we always tell people that, and we always let people know that.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's-
I'm
let me
understanding if it doesn't necessarily matter, but I don't know if she'd rather just.
So, sorry, Darcy, I don't mean to leave you. So the question right now is, that we're discussing is if we vote on this and deny the application, then you can't.
Same nature of like the same.
So if. Okay, okay, you're fine if we just
All
go
the
forward. Okay, fine.
commissioners either. To help the audience.
I tend to agree with that, that it does have historic character, and even though it's a non-contributing structure, I still think that the general rules of the historic district apply, so you can't paint the brick.
I did open the floor. Okay, I think we're ready.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion then. Chair, based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, application, photograph and product specifications, and Exhibit B, samples of tinted brick, 2 samples of tinted brick, and the Commissioner's actual inspection and review of subject property by all members except. I move that this commission deny the certificate of appropriateness based on the following: that the application is for tinting of existing unpainted brick masonry, exterior of primary structure. All work would be, okay. So I just leave it at what I just said. Okay. Is there a second?
Second, oh,
All in favor? No.
Yes, it
No,
would be all in favor of the motion, which is to deny.
Aye.
aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Based upon the foregoing findings and for reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be issued. So that's it.
That's it.
Rare.
I know. Yeah.
Okay, then based upon the
Sorry,
foregoing findings and for the reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be denied.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed?
Sad to me, but anyway, next application is for 19 Brook Street. This, if you're familiar with this property, it is on the southern So this application, if you're familiar with this building, it's towards the southern end of Brook Street, where it becomes Sweeten Creek Road. It is in the photo on the right-hand side, the building, one-story building where Catawba Brewing was previously located. Unfortunately, this building was pretty heavily damaged in the storm. It is a non-contributing structure technically. It was built in, I think, like 1951-ish, something like that. If you look at the redevelopment plan, it calls for redeveloping sites like this in a way that's more consistent with the historic architectural styles in the district. So while it is sad to lose a building, I think pretty much any time, even if it is a non-contributing structure, the property owners have applied for the private property debris removal program, and that program is about to come to a close, and so they are on a deadline to get approval for the demolition of the building. So I did note in my staff report, there's not, unfortunately, in the actual design review standards, and there's not a section on demolition. But I did kind of make the reasons in my recommendation are tied to the current conditions, and then also primarily referencing the development or redevelopment plan for the district, which shows this in sub-area high-density cottage, which as far as redevelopment goes, would look similar to the building that's across at 10 Brook Street, where there's kind of a more modernized, mixed-use style, multi-story cottage-type structure. So that's what's called for in this location. There's no proposal to redevelop the site at this time. It's just for them to take advantage of the PPDR program, and it will just be a slab on grade once the building's demolished. So happy to answer questions if you all have any.
For Alex?
I thought I saw that it was, right into it, okay, that the application was submitted by the city of Asheville, but there's a private owner?
There is a private owner, yes.
So that's what you're talking about, the program. Does the city acquire the property then?
I don't really know exactly how the PPDR program works. I think we manage the application process probably through our debris removal recovery work, but I don't know how it's structured necessarily. Ben Mitchell, who's here as representing the property owner, could probably tell you better than I can. We were just made aware of the PPDR application and said, oh no, we need to take this to the HRC, and thankfully we got word of the application in time to get them before you so that they can not miss the benefits of that program, because obviously it would be pretty costly to remove this big of a building from the site. So, okay.
Any other comments or questions for Alex? Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
I'm Benjamin Mitchell, and I've been sworn in. So as Alex was alluding to with this particular structure, it's been vacant for years with very little income coming off of it and prohibitively expensive to bring into any sort of reasonable condition. And we've had very little leasing interest here for a long time. So when the storm struck, it did cause pretty significant damage. Huge amounts of mud were deposited inside of it. And so we had been toying around with the idea of demolishing it for quite a while, and that sort of forced the issue. And as was discussed, the private property debris removal program is being administered by Buncombe County or the city of Asheville. I don't quite follow the whole flow chart myself, but we made application with the county some time ago, and then as the contractor was trying to get their ducks in a row, it came to light that this needed to be before y'all. And so we're hoping you'll look upon this favorably as far as its aesthetic appeal. It has been lacking for quite a while, and then to say the least, in the last 6 months, it's looked very bad. So from there, she alluded to some redevelopment plans that we may or may not be able to bring to fruition at some point. I didn't want to put anything like that in the actual package here as far as demolition, but I believe many years ago, we had something that was approved as far as a redevelopment, and we tried to shop that around to others, and it would have been and may still be a 25,000 square foot building. It would sort of move forward to the corner and have sidewalks in front and otherwise blend in much better with the neighborhood. About 14,000 feet downstairs and 9,000 upstairs in a wedding cake configuration with parking on the far image of the building here. And putting on my hat as one of the merchants in the village, today we had a meeting and everybody at the meeting was begging for this to happen sooner rather than later. So I think the PPDR has got a target date of everything being sort of tidied up by June 30th. And it may take some time, weather gets in their way, and there's quite a few of these. I think I just read in the paper today that Moe's Southwestern Grill on Biltmore Avenue is coming in, and we as a community are very concerned about our corridors and especially the entrances to the historic Biltmore Village. So we're doing what we can to beautify the area. Thank you for your time.
Well, wait. You know the program.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments for Ben?
The owners, they do understand that once this is torn down, their new project will have to be approved by the Historic Resources.
We fully understand that, absolutely, yes.
I remember years ago when there was a proposed condo development there.
Yeah, we had some renderings that were posted up to try and attract some sort of investment activity, leasing, whatever, and that really didn't get folks excited. I think that it's a hard sell when a building's not going up, but I do think that this activity and showing that the lot is open and available for real will probably spur that. I'm not going to name names, but we've had major national retailers look at this site before, and so I think that with other things that are going on in the village right now, that time could come sooner than we may think. We're really having a lot of good stuff happening in the neighborhood.
That's good.
Is it Sam's?
I don't think we could park that, Commissioner Hornaday.
Is there any tree removal or grading
I don't
changes?
imagine that there would be any significant grading or tree removal by this contractor. That it's D.H. Griffin, that is primarily a demolition contractor. There may be some incidental shrubbery damage or something like that, but that's not the scope of work we're asking for here. We're trying to get the building down and safe. Unfortunately, this did attract some illicit behavior over the winter, and it was problematic for all of us down there.
On the south end, there's a shorter section. Is that part of the building that's just
I think you're talking about like a knee wall down there that's a cinder
that
block.
short?
Yeah, I don't know exactly where the property line is there, and my suspicion is that it's around where that telephone pole is in front of that knee wall, and I would imagine that would stay in place for erosion control in the short term, and we might put some sort of light mural on it or something to cover up any graffiti that pops up from time to time. Yes, sir, no problem. And this building, a long time ago, up above it, you can't see it in the images here, there was some sort of concrete plant here, and there's this bunker-looking building up on the top of the hill where they would mix the mortar or cement or whatever, and it would come down some sort of device that allowed them to fill up the concrete trucks.
I doubt that the building is holding up the embankment behind it, but I think when you take the building down, it's going to look pretty scary because it looks like a mudslide.
Yeah, that's something that, I think we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Unfortunately, we have had some trees fall from there before.
From way above.
Yes, and so if and when we get around to that actual redevelopment, there's a home behind this owned by an affiliated entity that would probably be part of a comprehensive development as well. And the guys who are in the demolition business are erosion control specialists, so I hope that they would do what they could to minimize that.
They are or they're not?
They are, yeah, and it's what they do. And so the building is offset anywhere from 3 to 8 feet from that sheer wall that you're referring to.
Control erosion from the bank behind it. I mean, I know that bank is really scary.
Yeah, there's stone, there's mud, other soils there as well, and silt fence would just be kind of like not even worth our time. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a like bleeding artery.
Something, if
Yeah, we might put we've sprayed grass onto these sorts of places before, and the root system does help with that. Sometimes we do actually need to remove trees because they get kind of tilting one way or the other. And, you know, that's one of those situations that I don't think that there are tons of funds available for that from most developers at this point in time. But if you look at our other structure at Ruth's Chris, we did build an artful retaining wall that helped us to blend in with the rest of the village as well and perform that subsidence prevention.
I would just say that too, if there's some other, take the building down and there's some, need to build a wall or whatever it is, then I know Ben knows to reach out to our office so that we.
Yeah, I
can-
mean, we try to play by the rules, and as it stands, we are in the range of $30,000 to $40,000 if we were to have to pay for this to be torn down ourselves. And now it can be done at no cost to the landowner, which is a major benefit to us, especially in light of other losses we sustain. Thank you.
Questions? Open the floor for public comment. Close the floor for public comment.
I'm prepared to make a motion if nobody has any thoughts they'd like to share. On 63 Brook Street LLC. Chair, based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, application and project description, 3 pages, Exhibit B, private property debris removal documents, 10 pages, Exhibit C, substantial damage estimate documents, 7 pages, Exhibit D, property map, Exhibit E, photographs, 4 pages, and the commissioner's actual inspection and review of the subject property by all members except... I move that this commission approve the certificate of appropriateness based on the following. 1, that the application is for the demolition of existing structure due to damage from Hurricane Helene. All work will be completed in accordance with approved and attached drawings and plans. The plans for removal. All permits, variances, or approvals as required by law must be obtained before work may commence. 2, that the standards for new construction in contemporary styles found on pages 13, 15, Book 3, Chapter 4 of the Biltmore Village Historic District Design Review Standards adopted October 1st, 1988. Chapter 5, Proposed Plan and Character of Biltmore Village found on pages 53, 58 of the Biltmore Village Development Plan adopted July 1st, 1992, were used to evaluate this request. 3, the application does meet the design standards for the following reasons. A, existing structure was significantly damaged by the catastrophic flooding events during Hurricane Helene. B, existing structure is not consistent with the original character of Biltmore Village, and demolition of the structure is not inconsistent with the goals of reestablishing the original character of the district. C, existing structure is not consistent with the 1991 Biltmore Village Development Plan, which identifies this parcel as being part of the high-density cottage subarea. 4, this action, that the action and improvements proposed in this application before us for a certificate of appropriateness are congruous with the special historic character of the Biltmore Village Historic District.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Upon the foregoing findings and for the reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be issued.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
One important housekeeping note that I should have noted at the top and did not, but the application for 26 Grindstaff Drive has been withdrawn, so we are not going to look at that application today. So we're going to go straight back to Montford and 56 Pearson Drive. The last two applications we have today are both for additions historic structures in Montford. So this is 56 Pearson Drive. This photo on the right is the front elevation of the house, per usual, my site map, and then there is the site plan on the bottom left, which shows the existing footprint, and then if you pull it up, probably easier to see in your folder, but there's a red line showing where the top of where the older addition is being removed. So just some photos of the rear elevation. You can see there's this existing two-story addition that was, wasn't really clear to me when I looked at the Sanborn maps. I added to your folder the 1951 Sanborn map. It showed a porch on the back, which is shown, maps as a dotted line. So you could tell that there was a porch there, but it's not noted that it was more than one story or just was like basically like a porch rectangle on the back of the house. So certainly it's been modified over time to be how it is today. So these are the existing and proposed elevation drawings. On the far left, existing and proposed rear elevation, where you can see bumping out, and a little deck / balcony constructed there with doors on the second floor, and then some sliding windows below, and then some new doors and windows. And in the middle and right, you can see the changes to the side elevation. So it's really not a massively different footprint. This doesn't, to me, cause any concern. I did ask the applicant to provide the materials for the decking and a railing detail for the deck. And I also asked, and this may not have been super clear in our email communication, but I would like the applicant to speak to what's going to happen underneath the deck where those sliding windows are. It's noted as, I think, a bar. So I imagine there's going to be some kind of paved surface there, whether it's concrete or maybe it's gravel or whatever it is. Just want to get clear on that to make sure we have that information noted. But other than that, I'm not noting any concerns. I initially kind of thought that the sliding windows were a little unusual, but interestingly, they're also on the addition on the other house that we're going to be looking at next. So,
A bar, too.
yeah, now I kind of want this. But they are actually existing on the other house we'll be looking at. So I'm assuming the commission has approved these in the past. The one thing maybe this is like kind of nitpicky, but I'm not really sure I follow what's happening with the trim around those sliding windows. I don't know if maybe there's like a little bar that comes out at the bottom because the trim doesn't match the trim around the windows or the other windows or doors. And maybe it's just a product of the drawing and that it's kind of tucked up underneath the deck, but it looks like the trim's pretty wide at the top too, so perhaps they could match the trim a little bit better or provide clarification or a detailed drawing on what exactly that's going to look like. So that was really my only kind of design note. But otherwise, I think we have everything we need for the application, and yeah, not noting any other concerns. Do you all have any questions for me? Okay.
The fenestration on the addition isn't of any matching style whatsoever, and that's okay?
I mean, I think we've seen kind of a variety of styles of fenestration on rear elevations. Like I said, I was at first I had a little bit like, I don't know about the sliding windows, but that, like I was just saying, and we'll see it when we jump to the next application, that is existing on the house now in Montford on another addition.
The upper level?
You mean like the doors or the
Right, right.
pair of windows? Yeah, no, I've seen that in maybe one or two other applications on a rear addition. We kind of see a mixed bag. I mean, the standards do say that the fenestration needs to be, windows and doors in the addition should be similar to those on the original building in proportion, spacing, and materials. So if you think that that is something that, you want to talk to the applicant about working on a little bit, then certainly that's on the table for discussion. I think the commission has typically given more latitude on the rear, but I don't know, maybe sounds like maybe you think this is too much.
Every single window is not a historic proportion or function or operation.
Do you have any challenge with the French doors on the bottom floor?
Also, my computer died. Are one of those cords available? Do those cords charge?
Drew can get you another laptop. Yeah, I think there've been plenty of applications where the commission has approved French doors on a rear addition, so that's not an issue for me, but what else?
Windows, yeah, the windows.
Hey, you tell me where you want to, do you want to go back to the slides, or do you want me to,
I don't know why they didn't do it.
Guys, I'm going to swear you both in. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the information you present during the hearing for a certificate of appropriateness or preliminary subdivision approval before the Historic Resources Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Johnny. This is Ava. Architect, I'm the builder, the contractor. So in reference to your question, so we have a variety of options for those windows. Sliding windows is the more affordable option. There's also the casement option that's in our package that we submitted. And then there's the ones that get really expensive. We have these awnings that have struts on them that can really open. Right now, what's on is pretty much double hung wood windows on the front of the house and the side of the house. So a double hung would prevent them from having any kind of that access. So we're kind of asking, or they're asking for a little leeway just to have that option of the
It's a beautiful house.
Sorry, if you guys
upper-
could speak right into the mic. Sorry, thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I was just explaining that this back part is a kitchen addition, and since it was on the back, we were hoping that would help to allow us to have the openness to the backyard that.
In the upper left corner, there's the upper left window is being deleted and replaced with a bank of two. Is that window an original window to the house?
The only thing that we were is really structurally compromising and also just a really bad fit. Basically that punch out. It does look like it was a sun deck back in the day.
We'll get to that. Okay, so the window is an original window to the house. And are you
I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
upper left, upper left. Upper left picture, the upper left window. I think those ones in the sleeping porch are kind of replacement vinyls, but that one is an original. Are you reusing that window somewhere else?
I mean, that's a good question. We haven't thought about that, but we possibly could.
It looks like on the opposite side, on the lower right, that's too small of a window. That's probably a bathroom or something, but you don't have to reuse the window. I'm just asking.
I don't think it's an original. It's been a while since I've been there, but
Enlarge it a little. All I'm asking is, or I'm suggesting maybe to the commission that we consider that you put it in the basement and just save it if you're taking out an original window. Can you go back one more slide? No, the one yeah.
You want me to talk about the overall project, like why this is coming about? Would that be helpful or no?
I don't need that information right now. What material are you putting under the balcony deck?
That's a good question. You're talking about the flooring, is that right? Like the
Under the sliding or casement or?
So all the trim of the windows is going to be matching the original. But in terms of the flooring, we haven't really discussed that. If that's going to be, I don't think I've discussed that with them.
are you saying on the ground?
The ground.
The earth.
It was either
We're trying to
pavers or
keep the
concrete,
cost
but
down.
I'm not sure which one that they decided on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, no, you're not doing anything wrong. Everything's perfect. That was a question, and then. That's it. That was what I have.
Someone asked about the bar, kind of that's going to go into the windows. We haven't really discussed that either, what that would look like. Obviously, we're going to have the window trim all identical, but I'm not sure if they're just going to have kind of like a raised quartz or granite, kind of a slab there, if they're going to have anything there. I'm not sure what the plan is on that.
Wouldn't just be a wood shelf
It
with
could
brackets?
be a wood shelf, yeah. I think a wood shelf would look nice, and we could just lacquer
That's outside of our worries and cares.
Have,
Thank you.
Floor for public comment. Close the floor for public comment.
I'd like to see, or if the commission's agreeable to adding on a friendly amendment, that they hold on to the possibly original window in the basement somewhere.
Or reuse it.
Then I'll take the standard. And the surface under that deck is still, sounds like it's a little in flux along with the material of the countertop. Have approved conditions?
The idea of the piece of furniture makes more sense to me than making an architectural feature on the house. I've never seen that, but
Up for on the next house.
wood that's like the same width as the trim and comes out, then that to me is not going to be that noticeable, but I don't know, different people have different visions when they're doing, renovation projects.
That goes to staff.
If it's affixed to the house, yeah.
So Commission, I think that's what my standard amendment would be, is that there's a desk approval with Alex as they firm up the counter and surface below. I can make a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to, it looks like it was
Okay.
sound like it starts out normally. Hold on.
Yeah. I was just getting my streets mixed up. Chair, based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, application, Exhibit B, elevation drawings, floor plans, and site plans, 19 pages, Exhibit C, window and door specifications, 21 pages, Exhibit D, photographs, 10 pages, Exhibit E, and the commission's actual inspection and review of the subject property by all members except, move that this commission approve the certificate of appropriateness based on the following. One, that the application is for the demolition of existing enclosed porch addition, stair, and deck on the rear elevation, and construction of a 365 square foot, 2-story addition with painted wood shake siding, wood trim, and dark gray asphalt shingle roofing matching existing. New windows will be Pella wood 1/1 double hung and custom 4-light sliders. Doors will be Pella wood single light, new 13 feet 4 inches by 4 feet wooden deck with wood railing. Okay. Any original historic windows or doors being removed will be retained and preserved on site. All work will be in accordance with attached and approved drawings and plans. All permits, variances, and approvals required by law must be obtained before work may commence. That the standards for additions found on pages 88, 89, doors and windows, pages 84, 85 of the Montfort Historic Design District Review Standards, adopted April 14th, 2010, and amended December 11th, 2019, were used to evaluate this request. This application does meet the design standards for the following reasons. A, new addition is cited as inconspicuously as possible on the rear elevation where historic character defining features will not be damaged, destroyed, or obscured. B, addition is inset from the rear of the building corners so as to differentiate it from the existing building and to reduce public visibility. C, addition is designed so as to be compatible with the existing building in height, massing, roof form, and pitch. D, size and scale of the addition is limited so as to reduce the visual impact to the historic building. Addition will not overpower the site or substantially alter the site's proportion of built area to green space. E, windows and doors on the addition are similar to those on the original building in proportion, spacing, and material. F, exterior surfaces and siding materials are compatible with the existing building in material, texture, color, and character. 4, that the actions and improvements proposed in this application before us for a certificate of appropriateness are congruous with the special historic character of the Montfort Historic District.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Based upon the foregoing findings and for the reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be issued with the following conditions. 1, deck material and railing detail will be submitted for staff approval and review and approval. Revuebral, if you want that as one word. 2, ground material and counter design material adjacent to bar area will be submitted for staff review and approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
All right.
Can I abstain from voting?
You have to vote. I mean, you already voted on the first part. This is
Yeah.
just the second part.
I was reading, I didn't even hear it. How is it different from the first? I'm sorry, I'm messing up the meeting, but what was the proposal that we've just voted on?
Second half.
Yeah, it's just the,
About staff approval of the.
Yeah, about staff approval, it just has some conditions.
The first one said the windows and doors will match as closely as possible to what's existing.
so you should vote
I'll just say
no
nay.
twice. Yeah. All right.
Photo of the front elevation and site map. These are photos of the existing structure. You can see that there is a deck in pretty much the same location or footprint where the new addition is proposed to go. This is the, these are the existing and proposed site plans. So top being the new site plan, bottom being existing. And organize this pretty much the same as the other ones. On the far left, the existing and proposed rear elevation drawings, and then the side elevation drawings. The only concern that I noted on this application and I talked to the architect about it in the pre-app meeting, was that the chimney that's proposed on the, if it's probably easiest to see on the proposed side elevation down on the bottom there, it's pretty big in comparison to the chimneys on the existing structure. So one of the things that we talked about was corbelling it above the roof line at least, so that it had more of a narrower profile. It is still, you know, pretty tall once you're if you're looking at it from the side, because of course it has to go all the way up to the roof line. So I don't know what your thoughts are about that proposed design solution to make it feel a little bit more proportional to the existing chimneys on this house. They are, despite this house being pretty large house, most of them are, there's 2 secondary chimneys that you can see there in the top left drawing. Those probably would be like a kitchen or some other type of secondary chimney. And then I did just add some images into my slideshow so you can see the chimneys from the aerial. The one that's on the top left that faces the street is probably the biggest of the 3, but it's still, I tried to measure off the aerial. It's probably like 2 feet wide. It's not very wide as far as like the narrower side, and then I think it was like 3 feet wide on the wider section that faces the street. So I don't think that they necessarily have to be completely the same or in line with each other, given that this is in the back of the house and it's in a backyard, but I do think it would feel more appropriate for them to have a similar proportion, in my opinion. But that was really the only thing that I noted in my staff report as something that was a concern of mine. And then I also asked for a few things, like we still need the exact manufacturer specifications for the windows and doors. There's some windows and doors that are being reused that, I'm not going to go through them all, but those are noted in the CA request. I did also ask for a brick sample or image for the fireplace or the chimney, and this may not have been thought of by the applicant or the architect, but I imagine that there's probably going to be lighting on the exterior within these porch and deck spaces, so I just wanted to get clear on that with him and make sure we have those specifications to, if there are going to be light fixtures, new light fixtures installed on the exterior. So that's all that I have for you. Do you all have questions for me?
Questions for Alex?
How wide is the chimney? And I just ask because the
The existing or the proposed?
proposed,
It's almost 6 feet wide and then almost 4 feet deep. And I mean, I kind of looked at it at my own. I have a fireplace in my house that's stone and it's 9 feet wide. It's pretty wide. It's nice, but it's pretty wide.
Does the city allow having a fireplace below the window line?
top of the chimney. Yeah, I've had the same question.
I would defer to the architect on that. I'm sure he probably knows what the building code is. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not the right person to answer that question.
Outdoor kitchen, right? It's not attached to the house. It's separate from the building.
No, it's attached to the porch. But that's a good question. I'll let the applicant answer.
So your proposal is that they taper off at some point and have some shoulders on there.
Yeah, I mean, that would be
Just
the
to-
only solution I see that kind of would make it feel a little bit lighter. I still don't know that the section above the roof line isn't that tall, so I'm not sure if that's really going to make that much of a difference, especially if you were like looking at it from the side is where it feels the widest, but it would help, I think. The existing chimneys, it's a little bit hard to see. They do have kind of a little bit of a stepped detail, but it's in the opposite. It's kind of like does this versus.
There's no public right-of-way behind this.
No, it's not. No, not going to be visible really, but yeah, there's an alley, but it's pretty. I mean, this yard's pretty big, though. I guess like that picture on the right is taken from back near the rear property line. Pretty big yard. Thank you.
Pardon me? Oh, you've been, okay, I'm sorry. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the information you present during the hearing for certificate of appropriateness or preliminary subdivision approval before the Historic Resources Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yeah, we're going to take a break for a minute.
Yeah. Go into more detail later. Have him reading the quasi-judicial book from the school. That's what I was really talking about.
Oh,
Like,
sure.
the way they do
Yeah.
the process and, you know.
Thank you, though.
And that's why they pull out the standards to say, but they read it. She's,
Like sit there
And tear things up and pull things off the shelf.
they do
all,
it.
all,
Leave a giant mess
You know,
and break.
but they don't have, because it's the revision standards, sort of, do not unless there's a
Almost like that, yeah, I wonder if that would work.
Oh, I didn't. I had another gig. There was a huge crowd. I mean, I saw it. I was, sorry that I didn't.
Now we're cooking.
Backyard's huge.
See, but like when you're just standing.
From your brother.
Okay, maybe.
That's my old house.
How close
Okay.
do I have
That's
to
the one
be
that-
to you?
That was our first house.
Talk at the
They've
side, it
done a
doesn't
lot of
really.
work.
You really have to be front and center on the mic.
Ours was more like jungle gym.
Sorry, new technology. We were expecting this to go so well.
But it is really.
But you really have to be
quiet.
right there. It's got noise canceling. So if you're here, it won't pick it up. But if you get right here, it'll pick you up. That's like really close to like, you're almost having a mouth on it. That's not.
Yeah,
Across from next door.
they have clip-on mics for people.
Yeah, it used to be a really shady yard because of this giant walnut tree.
We've been unmuted on the live stream, so we're ready to roll.
Okay. Hello. As we were saying.
But don't you need to call the meeting back to order?
Oh. We're back in session.
Greg Lambert with BCA. Okay, so we did get the notes from staff, and we have actually addressed all of those, and resubmitted the report, but may not have come through properly. We'll get that. We sent a brick sample. There is existing lighting on the house. We're going to try to reuse the existing lighting, and if for some reason that can't be used, or we end up with another fixture that we need to, we've selected lighting that matches it as best as we can find. So it's all the same style, same finish of the existing lighting there. The, what was the other thing? The lighting, the brick, the chimney, and the
Deck.
so the addition, the previous addition was done in 2016, around that time. That was approved by the HRC, and we have the specifications from the existing, or from the windows used in the addition that would match, and those windows are still available. So the plan is to use, where we can't reuse existing doors and windows, we will use new ones that are of that same line. So we've sent those specifications, may need to resend. So those should address the issues that the staff had concerning those. As far as the chimney, we have looked at other options to reduce the overall impact of the chimney, as you can see up here, bringing it inboard of the roof and making it a little more narrow. While we still have the wider chimney breast down below, that is actually for the
Up.
This would allow proper mantle over the fireplace porch, and while still keeping the chimney above narrow. Now, as far as being tall enough, if we are in fact too close to the railing or the wood on the outside, we can move this chimney 90 degrees to the right and put it on the other face. And we've discussed that, which would solve those issues and keep the chimney lower rather than trying to chase some height of 2 feet, 10 feet over.
You lost me there. So this is your preference?
Well, this,
You could put it on the other face, other side.
you guys brought up the issue of its height a little bit ago, and brought up an issue for me to, well, maybe we don't.
Code thing, and they would flag, okay.
Yeah.
We have a design alternative that would allow us to.
Okay, so I think that, if approved, would be staff level. Okay. What, moving the chimney because code or inspector says you can't have it there, they would put it on the east-facing railing instead of the north-facing railing.
Right, and we just talked about that, and I think that's fine.
Why am I repeating?
No, well, we were just, we were talking about it, but when we were, they were emailing me the image, so.
The alternative, it's the commission that would need to approve the alternative. It wouldn't just go to, or would staff just look at what's proposed as the alternative?
It would just, we would just need a revised drawing for it, because it would just be to go on the back side of the deck instead of where it is now on the side. Does that make sense?
But in the approval,
We're approving a chimney on the north side.
But if it needs to move, then it's okay. Do you all think that this design solution addresses the issue?
What is that width that it trims from 6 feet at the base, and then it's 3-ish? Staff can correct me, there's not a lot on in the standards. I think trimming it down helped it from being just a
No,
Can't hear you.
Sorry, moving the chimney inside the roof line, I think was the other change.
I agree that it looks a lot better small, or as close as you can get it to the size of the other chimneys, I think would be good.
The other chimneys do share the detail.
Yeah, got it.
The brick sample that you're going to submit, is it match the base of the house?
So,
Yeah.
well, as best we could. I mean,
Yeah.
Comment. Commissioners, any other thoughts?
Prepared to make a motion if there's nothing else from other commissioners. Chair, based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, application and project description, 3 pages, Exhibit B, elevation drawings, floor plans, and renderings, 9 pages, Exhibit C, material specifications, 21 pages, Exhibit D, site plans, Exhibit E, owner's affidavit, Exhibit F, photographs, 4 pages, Exhibit G, revised chimney renderings, 3 pages, received June 11, 2025, and the Commissioner's actual inspection and review of the subject property by all members except. I move that this Commission approve the certificate of appropriateness based on the following. 1, that the application is for the removal of the existing deck on rear elevation and construction of a new two-story addition, 2 new covered porches, and new deck. All siding materials and details, trim, soffit, and roofing material to match existing. New windows will be wood 1/1 double hung. Existing 3-light siding windows on rear elevation will be reused on addition. 1 existing interior single light wood door will be used on new addition, as well as exterior door. 1 new single light wood door will be installed on addition, and 1 existing single light wood door will be reused on addition. 3 existing double hung windows on rear elevation will be replaced with an existing pair of single light French doors. All new deck materials, including flooring, railings, newel posts, and screening will match existing 5 by 10.75 wide by 3 feet 8.25 deep brick chimney will be constructed within the north elevation of the new first floor porch. All work will be completed in accordance with the approved and attached drawings and plans. All permits, variances, or approvals as required by law must be obtained before work may commence. That the standards for additions found on pages 88, 89, porches, entrances, and balconies on pages 72, 73, windows and doors on pages 84, 89, and decks on pages 38, 39 of the Montfort Historic Design Review Standards adopted April 14, 2010, and amended December 11, 2019, were used to evaluate this request. This application does meet the design standards for the following reasons. A, addition is sited inconspicuously on the rear elevation and where historic character defining features are not damaged, destroyed, or obscured. B, addition is designed to be compatible with the existing building in height, massing, roof form, and pitch. C, the visual impact of the addition of the existing historic building is limited by its scale and size. The addition does not visually overpower the site or substantially alter the site's proportions of built area to green space. D, existing windows and doors are being reused, and new windows and doors are similar to those in the original building in their proportions, spacing, and material. E, new porches are on the rear elevation and compatible with the existing structure in terms of roof form, scale, details, material, and color. F, deck will be located on the rear elevation and inset by at least 12 inches from the rear building corners, aligned with the first floor of the building, and compatible with the historic building in scale, proportion, materials, and detail. Number 8, that the actions and improvements proposed before us for a certificate of appropriateness are congruous with the special historic character of the Montfort Historic District.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Based upon the foregoing findings and for the reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be issued with the following conditions. Finalized chimney location and design will be submitted to staff for approval and review. 2, wood, door, brick, and lighting specifications will be submitted for staff for approval and review.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I have a couple of other business items really quickly that I wanted to get to. I originally put on here that we would update from the Educational Event Steering Committee. We had our first meeting last week. I think we're still trying to get our bearings straight, so I will come back to you after we meet again later this month. And when we convene in July, maybe I can give the commission or the folks that are on the Celesta, Sue, and Will are helping with the steering committee, and hoping we can kind of firm up what we want to cover topic-wise and maybe have some more details to share with this group at the next meeting. But we did get together for our first meeting, which was great discussion. So anything that you want to add on that?
I just want to let you know I had lunch with Ellen Pearson from the cemetery, and she is thinking about some things she may suggest for us.
Okay, wonderful. Do you all know Ellen Pearson? She's a professor at UNC Asheville.
Asheville South Cemetery, which apparently they're looking for a grant. They had $53,000 worth of tree removal that they need to happen, and she's applied for a grant that looks kind of good to cover almost all of that, but she's thinking. I'm going to talk to her again. She's always got ideas, so.
Okay, she's on the board of the South Asheville Cemetery.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad that you talked to her. She's always a great resource. Tried to get her on the commission, but she doesn't live in Buncombe County. I did just want to update you all on Biltmore Village. This isn't something that we've really pushed out broadly because we just have been trying to brainstorm and get it to grow legs, but we've been collaborating with the Preservation Society and the SHPO on updating the National Register nomination for Biltmore Village. When it was originally designated back in the day, it was like common for people to do these nominations. So instead of having like a holistic district boundary, there would be like a property over here, and they all went together, but they weren't part of a larger boundary per se. And so we want to update to actually have a district down there with a boundary. And what that will do is allow more properties to be eligible for rehabilitation tax credits. The IRS does allow a look-back period for that. So even if the nomination's not currently in place, rehab projects that are happening now for those buildings that aren't yet eligible can be then later apply for the tax credits retroactively. And so this is one of our recovery efforts that we're working on. We had a little bit of county funding left. We only get about $7,000 from Buncombe County every year for our programmatic budget, which is only like 4% of our entire programmatic budget. So we have a little bit of that left over that we are giving to the Preservation Society for them to be the project lead and actually hire the consultant to do the work of nomination, updating the nomination. So we have a consultant on board. We have about $10,000, so we've got a $15,000 project budget gap that we've got to bridge. So we don't know where we're going to get that money, but we are going to try to find something. So we're going to, myself and SHPO and PSABC staff are going to the Biltmore Village Merchants Association meeting, same day as the July HRC meeting, to talk with the folks down there about this, and hopefully we can get it off the ground and get that moving. I think that it's probably going to be a pretty complicated nomination to update based on kind of it being like a moving target down there right now, but we think it probably should take more than a year, would be the goal.
So the boundaries of the historic district for purposes of our jurisdiction would not change?
No, the, yeah, let me just pull up on it and show you what I'm describing. The local district boundary is a lot bigger, but you have to also be listed in the National Register to be qualified for the rehab tax credits. And that, there just aren't really any incentives for brick and mortar private property owners to take advantage of right now. And so we just are trying to do everything we can to find ways, for income producing properties. There's a 20% federal tax credit and a 20% state tax credit. So it's not a small amount, and that goes to can be applied to any qualifying rehab expenses. So like your art, your design expenses. The only thing it doesn't go to is if you wanted to build a new outbuilding or something. Naturally, it's meant to be utilized for. Yeah, I don't think you can use it for landscaping. So I'll just show you real quick, just so you have an idea of what the difference looks like between National Register properties. There's about 20-ish properties down there now, and this would increase by 30%. So it's not a ton, but again, we're trying to do what we can to help these impacted areas. If you are out and about in the community, important to share information about the rehab tax credit program. If you know folks in the RAD or otherwise, there's also a residential tax credit too. It's, I think, 15%. It's got a pretty small cap, I think. Purple, the purple dotted line, that's properties with blue are national register. So like those little awesome brick commercial buildings on Kitchen Place where Lululemon is, those aren't currently eligible to apply for tax credits. So this building. Property down here. Yeah, no. It is not. We did have, there was a redevelopment proposal for that property at some point in time. I don't know whatever happened with that. But the other thing I really wanted to update you on, this feels a little bit like I'm not trying to step into any kind of political territory whatsoever, but with the current bill that's being considered at the federal level, the budget in that bill, and you may not know this because this hasn't been widely publicized, but they're proposing to completely eliminate the Historic Preservation Fund, which is the federal money that funds all the SHPOs and tribal historic preservation offices in the entire country. And thankfully in North Carolina, our SHPO is not fully funded by that money. They do have state allocated funds, but it would mean quite a reduction in their service capabilities. And then the other thing that's important to note about historic preservation funds is that's the grant money that we typically apply for. We call them the CLG grants, but it's the federal historic preservation funds that go to the states for CLGs to apply for. And that's how we fund like pretty much 100% of the preservation projects that we do in our department. So I'm just noting that to you if you feel so inclined to reach out to your elected officials related to the work that we do as part of this board and program. I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that. I'm not sure there's much that can be done. I do know that the National Trust is, they're a pretty decent lobby, if you will, but I have no idea where this will go, and we don't know what it will mean for the National Register program. We don't know what it will mean for administering our own program. Obviously, we have state law, but then we also are pretty well nested underneath the SHPO. They guide us and advise us on many things. So it could change the landscape pretty dramatically if that happens. The other thing to note is that not only is the HPF funding slated to completely go away, they don't even have access to the 2025 funding that was already allocated. So kind of like everything else right now, a little bit tough. So I just noted that, wanted you all to be aware that that was happening related to the work that we do here.
Alex, on the map, can you show where you'd be expanding the federal? You have to still go by individual properties and just add individual properties in, or you're able to say?
No, that's a good question, Janice. So the orange boundary that you see here, back in 2018, so whenever there's federal money being spent or a federal undertaking under Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, things like environmental impacts have to be studied, and that includes historic resources. And so in 2018, the NCDOT did a corridor study for the Swannanoa River Road, and as part of that, they re-looked at this, they resurveyed this area, and so everything that was outlined in orange is determined to be part of what would be a district, with I think maybe one or two slight changes, like where the new hotel that you all approved, the new Kessler Hotel that you all approved, those buildings went away pretty shortly right after the storm. There was like some little bank buildings, and they were considered contributing resources, even though they were built in the 60s, but they're gone, so they'll probably be cut out of the boundary. So there's some minor tweaks that will probably happen to that boundary, but that's pretty much what it would look like. So it wouldn't match the local overlay exactly. Right. With the exception of, obviously, the Samuel Harrison Reed house is outside of the district boundary, so just don't want that to get confused. That is a local landmark that's not part of Biltmore Village.
And you also said there's a look-back period, so that if it got adopted now, people whose buildings had been damaged or destroyed could qualify as part of their renovations, because it would say anything that had been adopted now, or what, 2 years past, or what, I don't know.
The IRS has a 30-month look-back period. Yeah. And so what we're trying to do, Jennifer, Kathy, and Preservation Society and I are trying to do is, and we have been working with property owners on the front end, so that if they're obviously rehabbing their buildings and they have to meet our design standards anyways, then hopefully they're rehabbing in such a way where they can take advantage of the tax credits. So, yeah, just won't affect a million property owners, but well, there's just not really a boundary now as far as National Register goes. There is if you're looking at like the cottage area, the cottage area along All Souls, that's kind of like the only area that really has a boundary. Otherwise, it's all those other individually identified buildings. But this new boundary would bring it all
I did hear that the Kessler Hotel is
Well, I mean, I don't really have any idea why in the world they would be surprised. They do most of their development in Savannah and Charleston, so no kidding, you build on a
floodplain.
Yeah, floodplain. So I wouldn't surprise me. It would be a bummer. I don't know if you all saw that it got a tiny bit of press, and I'm not sure. I guess they had the plans in the paper.
Yes, they did. They had renderings in the paper, yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting design hotel, but it was also, at that point in time, going to cost over $50 million. So who knows what in the world a price tag for that
Well, now
would be
they've got to fix the other two, the one
They
building.
just
so-
opened the Grand Bohemian, but it's taken all that time, to open it. So
Well,
that
just
also
one,
is in the
just one of the,
floodplain.
yeah, just one of the buildings is open, the other one isn't.
The other one's still
Oh, on the one on the other side of the street. I saw the galleries back, and the lions are back in place. So
Yeah.
Same owner, that's why we're
Yes,
mentioning
exactly.
that.
Well, yeah, I
And
think
same
the-
architect. So, yes, they should be aware. And Alex, do you want to mention, we've talked before about Board of Adjustment is hearing variances to the flood protection ordinance. There's a special exemption for historic structures. And Alex has been working on that, and there were 6, I think, at the last.
We're going to see very many more, to be
Okay.
honest. I think we're seeing all of that die down. Basically, what Janice is talking about is, under our NFIP, you can either outright exempt historic structures that qualify under the federal guidelines, or you can create a variance process, and we have a variance process in our ordinance where people who are redeveloping, and the cost to redevelop exceeds 50% of what the building, I always feel like I have a hard time saying this. If it exceeds the cost of if the cost to rebuild to pre-storm conditions exceeds 50% of the value of the building, then you have to bring it up to our current code, and our flood ordinance has to be met. But for historic structures, that's to the extent possible. So most of what we're seeing is like elevating mechanical units and things like that. But they still have to come to our Board of Adjustment to get a variance for. And we've taken, I think we've had 6 that have gotten approved, and then we've got 1 more in the queue. But I think we're starting to see stuff slow down on that front, and a lot of people through the way that we orchestrated that process with the substantial damage estimates, we gave a lot of time for people to send out a formalized letter to all those property owners. But what we did was send a pre-letter so that they knew that this letter was going to be coming, because once the actual formalized letter notifying them of the substantial damage estimate arrives to them, then they only have 30 days to appeal that. And we wanted people to have adequate time to get a new appraisal or unearth their old appraisal, whatever, so that they could hopefully bring it underneath that 50% threshold and not have to meet our current flood ordinance. So that's what we saw happen a lot.
The basics of our current flood ordinance is if you have a building that's substantially damaged, you have to raise it 2 feet above flood base level. If that applied to a historic building, and they didn't have this allowance to say, no, but that would change the historic character, you'd be making historic buildings raise up. But there are interesting other ways that historic buildings can meet, there's floodgates, there's different things, and as Alex said, raising up electrical equipment, different things. So they still have to meet it to the extent possible without changing the historic character. And what I thought was interesting about that variance process is there was a longtime property owner who came in, whose building he flood-proofed it 10 years ago. He said if they hadn't done what they did then, the damage would have been even worse. But it's also interesting that so many of those structures, they're still standing, and the main damage has been just mud and debris, just mucking everything up. But he even said, I'm so glad that we had this process, because there are still a few property owners who are like, we shouldn't even have a flood protection ordinance. We shouldn't have to change any standards. But when you do try to meet the standards, it can save a building. And I think we've mentioned that the McDonald's is going to be demolished. But it also was built according to the flood protection standards, and you can see it's still standing. It did not float away, it is not destroyed, but everybody said, why didn't you keep it? That's such a iconic design. And they said it was more expensive to rehab that newer building, which is not that new, it's 20 years older. Yeah. So anyway, it's been kind of interesting how the two things intersect. I just wanted to make sure you knew about that.
Drops are all up on 4-foot steps. There's a bunch of them that are temporary power. Okay. At the new chemist and. I'd like to make a motion to close the meeting.
And
Favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
July HRC is the regular date. I mean, a lot of people, sometimes meetings get moved, but I guess it's